Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Lisa Lytle, and I'm here with my work colleague, Sue Bowder, and we are here just wanting to unpack something here for Holistic Dementia Services. Just wanting to remind you that we invite both care partner and the individual with dementia to join us here as we're just kind of unpacking that journey. And today, what's really kind of bubbling up for both of us is how do we live into chaos and imperfection? And I'm just going to be vulnerable and say, even doing this sharing, right? Just recognizing my own imperfections and recognizing that we're just going to have a really vulnerable conversation. And there's always the little thing in the back of the head going, oh, what if you make a mistake? So what if you do, right? So it's all good. Our world is really fast paced and it feels like it's getting faster. I don't think that's an illusion. I do think it is true. It's just the amount of information that we are constantly being bombarded with and having to navigate. And then just imagine what that might be like for someone with a dementia diagnosis and somebody really wrestling with brain changes. We're already in a world where things might have been a little bit slower. We were needing to slow down for them to be able to engage. And now the world is just, it for me, it feels like it's a train fast forward with, the brakes no longer work. That's just how it feels for me. So I can't imagine what it would be like to navigate that amount of energy with brain changes. So that's kind of what we're just going to touch base on a little bit here today. So Sue, I'm going to turn it over to you. And what's kind of coming up for you as we're just navigating that chaos and imperfection in our world today?
I think that part of what both of us are wanting to acknowledge is the reality of the multitude of demands that are on your lives. The demands that are on all of our lives in this modern world, and the increased just force of each moment, just calling us, calling us, calling us for involvement, action, and then to acknowledge here that those individuals who are living as families, as friends, with the realities of dementia, of brain changes, that the demands increase. I think that for the person with the dementia, the demand to more quickly find the word to communicate that is eluding them. Um, there's like constant pressure. How am I moving fast enough with my body? Am I moving fast enough with my mind that I can even still be part of a conversation? So those inner realities are so demanding, are so pressuring. And then for, I think, the care partners, just the reality of all the layers of demands. And, I think about, some of the care partners in my support groups will talk about the fact that they, never wanted to be a nurse, right? And so trying to navigate that, figuring out not only the demands of the daily life for doctor's appointments and for making way through the intention to be able to still communicate somehow. And then there's like the demands of, well, now even the activities of daily living have become demanding, right? Dressing is difficult. Perhaps negotiating the eating utensils for the person with the dementia is difficult. And so there are these constant demands to learn new ways to respond, to deal with things that we never had to think about before. So all of those changes that are taking place, while there also is this demand to have hands-on care that perhaps we're not really skilled at, and then how to handle that, um, and learning how and when to call in others to have a care team. And that's, I think, one of the things that pops up for me initially here is to say, this is this reality is something that this reality of overwhelm, of demands just being relentless, um, not to be traveled alone. It's just honestly too much. And so I constantly give thanks for the way that we have one another to give each other some of the practical strategies for coping, and then also the emotional support of saying, I've got your back. You are not alone. Um, yeah. So just for a moment, even to kind of take a breath with that, to just pause and let it sink in that while on one hand, because it's a paradox, there is a way in which each person with dementia is experiencing this alone. And yet there are places to go to connect with others with dementia where suddenly it lightens, that the reality lightens, and there's hope, and there's even laughter. And for the care partner, um, to acknowledge this load on your life, and then to say there are ways in which you are carrying this alone. And then the paradox is you're not alone. And how important that is to make sure that you're adequately getting support. So just like take a breath for a moment and just let it sink in, any kind of reality of the overwhelm. And then to allow for the possibility that there really can be community, there can be connection for you, that you're not alone. Being here today, we're together in this. We want you to feel that support in the midst of all these demands. Yeah, that's some of what percolates for me, Lisa. I'll bounce back to you.
Yeah, breathing, giving ourselves the grace of breathing and slowing down. So important, essential. I would like to just step in and talk about what happens when there are so many demands, and what happens when our world is profoundly shifting and changing in ways that are perhaps unique, challenging, maybe even scary with what's happening. And for a care partner, there's the acknowledgement of the person I used to rely on to really have deep discussion about all of those challenges and fears and navigating and making decisions about where are we going to step in this new world of technology, or maybe where we're not. But you had someone, a significant other, maybe a mom and dad, it doesn't matter what the relationship is, but it was that person you could rely on. And now, because of their own brain changes, you're kind of alone in that you're no longer able to maybe engage in that way with that individual. And that could be really lonely and frightening and scary because you're having to navigate the entire world, and all of those decisions you may have made jointly, you're having to make alone. And so I think just stepping back to what Sue had shared, that's really why it's so essential to have a support community around you. Even if that community is us virtually, maybe you're in a situation where you're in the middle of somewhere where you can't drive and maybe be in a in-person support group, but you know that you can kind of tune in and there's Lisa and Sue, and they're just going to be present with me and give us some ideas of how to navigate this. And we invite you in to comment here and ask questions, and we will absolutely answer them. So we just want to acknowledge that we know this is not an easy journey. It is complex, and the levels of daily decisions that need to be navigated and the chaos that can come from that. And then we also hear how the care partner feels. I feel like I'm always making mistakes. I feel like I'm always making the wrong, I'm reacting in ways I shouldn't, and I feel badly, and there's shame around that. And giving yourself grace and saying, you know what, you're still showing up. Today you are here, right? And so commend yourself for that. Give yourself the grace of that imperfection because we are not expected to be perfect. Sue and I always kind of chuckle about that. We're not perfect, right? It's just part of the human journey. And so just acknowledging that and really breathing, slowing down. I was sharing with Sue before we came on to do this recording is one of the things that I do literally to calm down my nervous system. I have these cute little YouTube videos that are animated and it shows, little animals like foxes and owls, and they're doing things that for me feel calm. So they might be gently writing a letter and then putting it in an envelope, and then they're walking it to the mailbox. And my nervous system just starts to calm. Because for me, these are wonderful experiences that I've had in my life that I do miss because many of us don't write letters too much anymore. I still do, but not as often as I used to. But that whole idea of writing a letter, sealing it, putting a stamp on it, we could walk to the corner usually, and there was a mailbox, and we could drop the letter in there. And those videos give me a 5 or a 10 minute nervous check in. Like my nervous energy just starts to say, I can relax now. I don't have to be in hyper vigilant mode right now. I can just breathe, calm down. It just is really good for my nervous system. So I just encourage you to find whatever tools those are. I have three, what I would call almost children's book, Velveteen Rabbit. I'll sit and read those, like just anything that I can use to just be calm. It's really critical, especially as a care partner. So I just invite, and maybe you read that book with your loved one. Oh, what a beautiful experience that might be, or you share those videos together. So that's what was coming up for me, Sue. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and I know want to be mindful of time, so kind of wrapping it up. But just what are your last minute thoughts as we're kind of just dealing with chaos and imperfection today?
I think probably one of the biggest triggers to feeling imperfect and feeling guilty is frustration, right? That the reality is there's so much overwhelm in the experience of dementia, whether within your own body and being, your own mind, or whether with the caregiving, um, that that we have a lot of knee-jerk reactions, right? So say I want to speak to the care partners for a moment, right? So with the brain changes often come personality changes for the person. So most likely they're really there's a greater tendency toward anger or toward explosions of frustration. And then, man, the knee-jerk reactions that we as care partners will experience. And so the word pause, 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 uh, you know, often we can't even get away in the midst of the caregiving, can't even necessarily take 5 minutes even to get someplace. So somehow there need to be tools for finding ways to stop the immediate knee-jerk reactions, right? So there's anger coming toward us, there's the other person's frustration coming toward us, there's resistance, there's like, no, I don't want to get dressed right now, or no, I'm not getting in the shower, right? There's so many things during the day that absolutely stir our knee-jerk reactions. So when we feel frustrated, when we want ourselves immediately explode back, what do we do? they're in the midst of it. If we can't, like, I know one person said that they would run into the bathroom and even have 30 seconds and run into the bathroom, close the door, and have a pillow there and scream into it and then come back and keep going. So, any kind of like small, like run out or sometimes just walk out to the other room and come back in. But if you're in the middle of something that you cannot literally physically go away and give yourself space, then, as Lisa and I've been talking and sharing life, and um, just I personally continue to come back to the importance of a conscious breath. And there is literally so much power in, and talking about being transparent and vulnerable. I I have so much knee jerk going on in my life. And when I feel best about myself is when I'm able to just create a little tiny space in there between the other person's behavior and my response, and really shifting from react to respond. And that takes a lot of kindness to ourselves because I think we have to allow for just the smallest steps of improvement, right? But if we practice, if we can just simply go, oh, okay, I feel it coming, stop, pause, take a breath. Sometimes just one, for me, sometimes just one breath or more often three breaths, but I can often, in the midst of something that is so challenging, find that ability within myself to truly be able to respond with love rather than to simply react. Um, and I think that part of the creating that pause for compassion, for rebooting our own behavior, part of it is we have to quickly allow for exactly what we're feeling. So initially in that first breath, I'm going to, as a care partner, I'm going to say, whew, okay, I'm acknowledging to myself, man, I'm angry. Man, I'm so frustrated. I feel so overwhelmed. And maybe on the next breath, I go, okay, it's okay that I feel that way, right? So that first step of acknowledging what's going on for ourselves internally and giving ourselves grace and kindness. And even by that third breath, just that quick acknowledgement and acceptance and allowing this this complexity of feelings that are going on inside of ourselves privately. More and more, the more we practice even just a breath or two of that, I see improvement in my own life with just a little bit more being able to respond with love, which is what I always want to do. It's really love that I want to be about. And I know that that's true for all of us listening in, or you wouldn't even be signing on here, right? That you're recognizing the difficulty of this journey and saying, I need support and I need tools. And so I invite you as we're closing up today to just start more intentionally practicing breathing before speaking, before acting. It's not an immediate fix, but I think it does empower us to move closer into the kinds of behaviors that we really want. And for those of you with dementia who are listening, you too, right, can perhaps be practicing, even if you're not finding words very well right now, perhaps you can also take some conscious breaths and look at this person who's caring for you, with you in these changes, and return to love. And I know how much we've spoken this before, and I know how much it means to care partners when the person with dementia is able either to say thank you, or perhaps you can't speak those words anymore, But if you feel that gratitude inside of you, it's going to come through your eyes. It's going to be surrounding you, and that will touch your care partner. Um, we we see you. We we applaud you, each one, for this challenging, chaotic experience and your desire to bring a greater sense of peace and love to what you're facing. So I just say, God bless you.
So I'll just step in and say, we know that there's so much more that we could discuss here, but I think this is the perfect moment to bring this particular episode to a completion. And we invite you in today at those moments of, what do I do now? Just to take a breath. So we wish you well. Many blessings as you go out in your day. Comment here if you have questions. If there's something you'd like us to discuss, let us know. Until then, till next time, many blessings. Have a wonderful day.
Bye bye.